even when the instructions are written bold in 14 font, they often are not followed.
Yes.
And if you don't know how to then verify they were followed, it's just going to be a problem. Can I tell you something really funny?
I always want to hear something funny.
So, I'm the founder of Ternus, but I also am still on the board with RCN Capital. This morning, in the managers meeting, we closed almost 200 loans last week at RCN.
Woo!
And there were these loans where the wire was sent to title and the wire got sent back. And that's always weird. Like, you're doing a refi and and one investor that had a house free and clear did not understand that he'd have to pay off the mechanics liens on the house when he refied. And I'm just thinking, man, how'd you get all that money? Because you're an idiot. But, it happens, right? These people, some of them, it's not just the newbies. There are some people that have just gotten lucky or just have money. Could be both. And, how could you not know that? But I guess they don't.
Well, I think there's one aspect that's just well, can I get away with this? What, And
maybe they won't catch it.
Can we just not pay that? And I was I always ask them back, give me your reasoning as to why you think it shouldn't be paid. Just out of curiosity, and give me the scenarios. I can usually vet how skilled they are in it. So I think half of it is just let's see what I can do. The other half is really not understanding how to read this stuff. How to really read a commitment. Because the title companies will throw it at you and be like, here's the commitment. And then you're like, okay, is it clear? Is it not? Half of them don't tell you that. You have to read through it and be able to see. Or they're we're ordering payoff. And they're well, is there anything else? Oh, yeah, by the way, we have these liens and this judgment and da-da-da-da-da. So they might tell you that. But sometimes that's pulling teeth to get it out of them. So I think a lot of these guys get thrown the copy and they just think, oh, it must be fine because they sent me the title commitment or whatever the reasoning being. And then they're so shocked last minute where they're like, no, we're not ready to close. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
We've got liens. And that's where we come in and we say, we read title. We don't rely on them to tell us. I will read through it extensively because half the time title does, not half the time, they're very intelligent, but a lot of times some of the escrow officers are just passing it
Both
from
of us
the
are
underwriters. I know,
I'm not even in real estate that much
I forgot,
anymore.
this is not a politically
whoa,
correct
whoa.
podcast here. But you'd be shocked at how many attorneys and title reps miss things and aren't paying attention. And it's their underwriters. They're like a buffer to the underwriter. I was just talking to a guy today. We have this weird situation that we're going down a rabbit hole on lost note affidavits for lenders who lost the original promissory notes under the UCC commercial code and what you can do and how you can foreclose and not. Super interesting. Anyway, my point is that I said the number one, I said, well, what's the underwriter's stance on these versus clearing it not? It's a whole backstory here. But without getting into technicality or legal, he's like, oh, that's a good idea. I said, you have to ask the right questions. And I said, and if you start citing property code and things as an investor or a TC or someone on your team, they're going to be like, you know what, why don't you just talk to the underwriters? Score. Because they're the ones that you can push and ask questions and say, well, what would you accept? And if they don't, well, how many underwriters do you have? So it's all just kind of a game of knowing what questions to ask and who to push and what's acceptable. Because at the end of the day, title companies are just taking a risk to insure you.
So I'm going to stop you. They're actually not taking the risk to insure you. Title insurance is the only insurance that exists that insures something that has already happened.
That is true. You're correct.
They're not even insuring you. They're insuring the last people.
You're correct. But they're saying, well, what am I willing to allow to have on there in order for me to extend that insurance out?
So I don't want to beat this dead horse, but I got to say this before I forget it. It's important to have someone like Atlas in your corner giving instructions to the title company because even when the instructions are written bold in 14 font, they often are not followed.
Yes.
And if you don't know how to then verify they were followed, it's just going to be a problem.
I like that you say that because I tell everyone a contract is a roadmap for title. It's just a roadmap. You're telling them this is how I'd like you to transact this and how much I want insured, and that's it. That's what they do. And then they vet all the details, and they're a third party that coordinates just to make sure everything is clear.
Can we say is supposed to in front of that?
Supposed to.